The Game Boy Micro is a fantastic little handheld with the power of a Super Nintendo all inside. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined being able to play Super Nintendo style games on the go. But the Game Boy Micro was more than just that. It allowed us to play all sorts of games on the go in a very small form factor. The Game Boy Micro was released in 2005, a little under a year after Nintendo's new flagship handheld, the Nintendo DS. The Game Boy Micro was set to run alongside the Nintendo DS and continue the Game Boy bloodline. However, things changed when Nintendo realized they didn't need two handhelds, but one that could do both. The Nintendo DS gave users the option to play Game Boy Advance games on it, leading many to not be interested in having two devices to play their games, but one shiny new one.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Of course, this caused the Game Boy Micro to do poorly in sales. The marketing campaign was minimal, including some very interesting choices for how they would market it. At this point, Nintendo was set on leaving the Game Boy line behind and focusing on the DS. Now, the Game Boy Micro was set to be marketed as the smallest Game Boy ever, and it also had the ability for users to swap out the faceplates and customize it, if you will, to their own style. I didn't have a Game Boy Micro in those days, so I wasn't one that was able to purchase any of these faceplates. They go on the market now for a pretty penny, and most third-party created ones either don't fit well or are just made very poorly. Now, what I do love about the handheld is how damn small it is and portable. This is something you could just throw in a bag or even in your pocket, and honestly, sometimes you can even forget that it's there. As someone with bad eyesight though, most games are heavy with text, and I find other options to play on. RPG titles mostly, but getting the ability to play Pokemon or Super Mario style games on it is honestly pretty great. Now, one thing many people complained about was the inability to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on the Game Boy Micro. Nintendo was always great about backwards compatibility with their handhelds, getting to play original Game Boy games on the Game Boy Color, and then getting to play those games on the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Advance SP, so one would assume the trend would continue from there. It soured some folks that this option did not carry over onto the Game Boy Micro, given the form factor of it. I think it's safe to say that it was a smart move, as you wouldn't really want a Game Boy cart to be sticking out so far like this on a Game Boy Micro. You can do this on the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy Advance SP if you really wanted to, but as for me, I personally wouldn't want a Game Boy cart just sticking out like that from this, what is designed to be a very small handheld for you to carry around. Now, I have very few complaints when it comes to the Game Boy Micro. I'll be honest, this system wasn't designed for me. It's a very small handheld, I believe it was probably designed more for kids, or teenagers, and such. As someone my age now with my bad eyesight and, having larger hands, this thing is pretty small. It's still amazing to look at and to be able to just play these games every now and again on it. But I can see why it failed, as not too many people were interested in something this small, and having the ability to play the Game Boy Advance games on the Nintendo DS was where I think most of the consumers populated towards. It's a bummer. I think it's a neat system. I think it looks very premium. It feels very high quality when you're holding it in your hands. But unfortunately, it just wasn't designed anymore for anyone in mind, to be completely honest. Nowadays, if you're interested in getting one, you're definitely going to pay a premium for one of these handhelds, as not too many were sold, so obviously it's going to increase the cost of the devices since they're a lot more rare nowadays. I've seen some start at around $140, but for the most part, if you want a brand new unbox, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it, or if you are okay with a opened one, scratch screen, kind of how mine is, then you can get one for around 150, 180. It does use its own proprietary charger, so most of them may not have it nowadays, so you can buy a third-party one like I had to on Amazon, and it works just fine. But anyways, guys, that's just my quick look at the Game Boy Micro and a quick brief history on it. If you're interested in getting one, go check them out, or just go get a regular Game Boy Advance, which you can probably get on eBay for around 50 to 60 bucks, or the Game Boy Advance SP, which you can get for 80 to 100 or so dollars, if you're lucky, I guess. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for going all the way to the end with me on this. Looking to have more content out in the future. You can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on Instagram. I'll have all those links below down under the video for you to check out. Thank you once again, and this is Rudy with Retro Universe, and I'm out.